it so difficult for us? What are the things that we could use from a governance perspective to ensure that really, while we grow our families across generation, we're actually growing the wealth that is also of the family across generations as well?
Thank you, Mercy. Honestly, I can't put my finger on it and say this is why, African families or Nigerian families have been incapable of passing wealth down third, fourth, or fifth generations. But one thing I have seen from my practice is that I think because there's enormous wealth, the scion of the family thinks it's invisible and you'll probably live forever. You only need to visit the family division of the High Court and you see a number of estate cases, intestacy matters. You'd wonder if, this man ever thought he was, he never planned that he would die one day. It's an unfortunate trend in our clients, but I think there's need for some deliberateness on the part of families and family leaders to ensure that generational wealth is passed, not just to their children, but down the generations. Now, in terms of the structures that affluent families can use, I'll just say that it really has to be formal and formalized, and there has to be some deliberateness and seriousness about it. I can mention a name, and I'm sure if you're not in my age bracket, you probably not know that name, but especially the younger people, Candido Darocha. The name is Candido Darocha. A lot of people might not know that name, but that was the first Nigerian millionaire on record, and he had immense wealth, held immense assets in Lagos Island, other parts of the Southwest. He started the first native bank in Nigeria, had huge investments in gold and an enormous commercial outfit, and he traded with the Portuguese, the British, and he was just larger than life. The family is still very much around. A lot of them down the generations are technocrats, but we don't see the kind of wealth that Mr. Darucha had. In terms of structures that families can use to deliberately keep wealth in the family down the generations, I'll just start by saying, first is to have a family constitution. You might say, oh, what do you need a family constitution? You really have to be deliberate about it. You need a family constitution. You mentioned going to Japan, going to parts of Europe, and you see 12 generations, and they're still wealthy. Not just the wealth, but they're still in the higher echelons of society. It's deliberate. So I'd say Nigerian and African families, you need to have a family constitution that says who you are, what your values are, what your purpose as a family will be. And I know the constitution will also lay a governance structure for how you manage wealth, how you take decisions in that family. It will determine who the head of the family is. It will determine roles and responsibilities, even sectors. What sector is this lion of the family going to be allowed to do business? Is it aviation? Is it trading and commerce? Be very deliberate about it. Who's going to be the spokesperson of the family? Who will speak for this family? What are we going to do? Another thing that the family constitution can cater for is education and training. Mentoring is very, very important if you want to pass wealth down the generations. I'm happy that our colleague spoke about Sharia and the responsibilities around the expectations of Sharia to mentor people. I let them know that the wealth that is sitting in the bank, the wealth that they see around them, they are holding it in trust loosely for generations to come. people have to be taught to not to squander, but to be willing to pass it down down generations. Now, speaking about mentoring and how it can lead to generational wealth, let me just digress a bit to speak about. I won't name him. I'm speaking about. We have Nigeria plays home to one of Africa's billionaires, sugar and rice magnates, who has diversified into oil exploration, and he's building the first oil refinery, privately owned oil refinery in Lagos State of Nigeria. Now, he was mentored by his uncle, who was also a billionaire, and his uncle in turn was mentored by his father, who was also a billionaire. So there are lessons to learn, and there's immense capital from teaching people how to manage money. Yes. So you might not have whiz kids across the entire family, but you have one or two pass down the lineage to also grow wealth. So it's really key that African families get deliberate about having a family constitution, saying who they are, the kind of things, values they believe in, and what as a family they are going to do going into the generations. In terms of education and training, which is also something that will be taken care of in the family constitution, for affluent European families, even the Americans, you would find that it's not impossible or it's not uncommon to hear that, oh, we're a member of this family, so we typically go only to Yale. We study only at Yale, or we study only at Oxford. So it's deliberate coaching and mentoring, and it's deliberate to make sure that they get the education and they remain relevant in society. So first thing I'd advise is that families have a constitution, and they're deliberate about keeping wealth in the family. Second thing, if you're going to have a family constitution, having a head of family, there should be a succession in the family. Succession is very, very important in wealth management. I'm sure you're aware of the Beyonchu family, the family that owns about 45% of is it Samsung? I think it's Samsung, and how one of the successors of the original person who started the family fell into a coma for 6 years, and that almost, sets the family's fortunes ablaze. So family council, tells you who the head of family is, who are the elders of the family, and it helps to keep everybody in check. I spoke about a constitution. It goes beyond just biological lineage. You also need to buy into our philosophy. If you are not going to buy into our philosophy and remain a member of the family, then you can just, the wealth won't come to you because you're not buying into what we want to do. So you need a family deliberate access to professional advice, something that Nigeria and Africa have. The family office cater for people with a net worth less than 50 million US, but you can work around things like that. It's a bespoke service. They go beyond financial advisory and investment. They handle things such as managing assets. If you acquire assets in a foreign jurisdiction, they can actually manage the assets, engage professional advisors to look after the property. It's a kind of bespoke service to ensure that assets stay in the family. So there's need for some formal access to professional advisors, investment advisors, risk management, you need insurance, so key man risk across the family. You need things like that. It really has to be formalized. And then succession planning, you really have to plan for succession. So these are some of the measures I think African and Nigerian families that are serious about, taking generational wealth to the next level. These are things that they really have to be deliberate about going into 2023 and beyond.